My name is Benjamin Woods, and I'm running for Roanoke City Council as one of the Democratic nominees.
Great. And if you could give us just briefly your background.
So I am an experienced project and campaign manager. I'm a small business owner. I've ran projects and multi-million-dollar campaigns throughout the country over the past decade, where I originally moved out of the Roanoke Valley from Shawsville, where me and my wife both grew up. I've worked for ran dozens of campaigns, built nonprofits that were more civic engaged in the process. I served as a senior advisor and campaign manager for the former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of North Carolina, and I've worked for a dozen different elected officials over the years. Been very successful at it, and my wife Sarah and I now live in Raleigh Court, Greater Raleigh Court. Absolutely love it, where we have a little English setter that she's old now. Her name's Gracie, and we just got a kitten about 2 months ago, named him Frankenstein. He's a black cat, just in time for Halloween. I got into this race because I didn't see members of my party talking about affordability issues with rising real estate taxes and transparency in City Hall, and just the overall economic environment of the city. As for the entire region, Roanoke is the anchor of the region. And when it's healthy, everything around it's healthy. And so I just saw a lack of rhetoric around that, and I wanted to get in to talk about those issues and to bring some much needed change to City Council.
You started to touch on this into my next question, but why do you want to serve Roanoke as a City Council member?
I think that it's time for some turnover on council. I think there needs to be a new generation that goes into council with a fresh perspective. We do have, I think one member is a millennial technically. It's just you have a whole different point of view for how the city should run, how it should communicate, how it should respect its citizens. It shouldn't just all be legislating and then going home. It needs to be educating people of why you have done what you're doing or what the issues are going to be going forward. And I think it's a position of leadership that I was seeking to do that because, I don't think I'm anything special personally, but I was just sitting there, I was like, I think I could do better than that. And that's why I decided to run. I believe in brutal honesty, and I believe that people have been having a difficult time the past few years. And property taxes have absolutely skyrocketed, and you have a lot of people on fixed incomes in this city or that are hovering right above that line to where they could get help, like easement on taxes, reduction or forgiveness from the treasurer's office. And they can't get that because they're right above that poverty line that the city operates off of. So every time the valuation skyrockets and taxes go up, it just increases the likelihood that people are going to be placed out of their homes. And I wanted to address that issue.
Yeah, let's talk policy priorities. Mm-hmm. If you're elected, what's one of the first actions you would push for City Council to take?
One of the first actions is I know that once I'm elected, it will be a large Democratic majority on council, and lowering tax rates is usually not something that is broached when it's just Democrats on council. So I would want time to do that in a smart way to make sure that the budget implications are minimalized, that it's, leveraging against future projections, not going as high as fast as they have been. So the first absolute thing is I would want a moratorium on any increase in real dollar value that people paid the city so they could catch up to the skyrocketing valuations. Because it's coming again. The valuations were kind of slow this year. This fiscal year, it kind of went slow because the economy slowed down compared to what it has been in the past with the real estate market. The Fed just lowered interest rates. More people are coming back into the market to look for homes, which increases demand, which increases the market value, which is how we adjust the valuation on homes in the city. So it's going to continue to be an issue. And so I think that is one of my first priorities, is to get that under control. Mm-hmm. Did I answer that directly? Moratorium.
Yes,
Yeah.
got it. Thank you.
Gotcha.
A main priority of council is overseeing a roughly $380 million
Yes.
budget
Yeah.
annually. What do you want to see happen with the city's budget over your 4-year term?
Well, the budget is going to increase every year unless there's, in another 2008 around the corner that just crashes everything. And that is, I want to see it managed more efficiently. I want to see every department be transparent in what they need, because whenever you could cut down on overhead costs and increase the free room in the budget, you could give city employees much needed raises, better benefits. You could, fund the pension that's needed and be responsible on the other end with taxpayers and be able to get something back to them rather than just letting everything continue to raise and raise and raise. The city had a $16 million surplus last fiscal year that they didn't plan. And, my view from it is, if you can't plan to spend the money, then the money should go back to the citizens. Plan it. If you want to spend $16 million more, then plan it, and do it properly. Don't just say, aha, we found $16 million, and then go spend people's money that they didn't want you to spend to begin with. But I think that getting some transparency in the budget process right now, the city council, only from my understanding, talking to council members and operations, and they get top line numbers of the budget. They are not going through itemized departmental budgets to see if there's any overspending or waste or what's happening underneath those top lines. So that's the first thing that I want to do with the budget, is get in there and see exactly what the money's being spent on where. Because doing what I've done for a living is I've managed 7 and 8 figure budgets consistently over the projects and campaigns that I've managed. Is I always go back to, what is the money being spent on? Is it being spent frivolously? Are you planning for the future? So that's what I would want to do.
Mm-hmm. Roanoke's residential neighborhoods remain highly racially segregated.
Yes.
What role should city government play in dismantling that legacy?
That's a good question. The opportunity has to continually be there for people to move up in the world economically. Whenever you do that, you start to see the racial gap dissipate in real time, because now what you have is, you don't just have, the railroad tracks splitting, what is the segregated city with African Americans living on the north side, the white residents mainly living on the south side. It's also an opportunity and value of homes, because there has not been enough good paying jobs come into the region. There hasn't been enough focus on economic viability of a base to fund not only the city government, but provide opportunity for people that work for a living. And, and a lot of those people live in Northwest Roanoke or Southeast Roanoke that just need economic opportunity. They need access to a good paying job. You can't feed a family anymore. You can't feed a family of 4 working retail job where you're making $35,000 a year. And right now, that is the vast majority of jobs open in the city of Roanoke, in the Roanoke Valley. So that is the biggest thing that the city government can do, is focus on lifting everybody out of poverty if you can. That's the long-term goal of government, is zero poverty, right? And that's how you desegregate. That's how you integrate communities, because it removes that last barrier of affordability, and it lifts every neighborhood out when it does that.
How would you work to implement the city's climate action plan, or do you disagree with its recommendations?
I think that most of the climate action plan, was designed to do the right thing. I know that it is, looking for the word, it was enacted for the right reasons. One of the things it needs with that and overall Parks and Rec is, some additional funding to get under control. You have the heat desert up, especially in Northwest Roanoke, where just the tree canopy isn't there. And I can't recite to you the mean temperature off the head, the difference, but it's a considerable difference in temperature on a hot day where if you're off of Melrose or if you're off of Brandon, in South Roanoke. And so one of the things you need to plant the trees, get them in the ground, get the underbrush, grow them responsibly, plan for the maintenance, is the first and most immediate thing that the city can do, then they could plan, and there's grants available. I would love to look at hiring some more grant writers for the city, because there's a lot of huge nonprofits out there that want to fund places like Roanoke, be environmentally friendly, and have more of a conservation view of things. And the money's out there, you just got to go after it. And when it comes to the overall reduction, I think that's the main thing that we can do, is get some tree canopy up, increase public transit when we can, so there's less cars on the road and people can get wherever they need to go without having to drive 30 minutes in their own car, when you could have a nice bus or whatever the future might hold with public transportation. I think that those are the two biggest tent poles of how to get to that goal, that 2040 goal.
Mm-hmm. You're on record opposing current policies that ended exclusively single-family zoning. What's your solution to encouraging the development of more affordable housing?
The first thing that I want to do, the reason that I oppose it is because the neighborhood's already established, and you have, entire streets that go up that cannot hold, 10, 20 more apartment buildings. We have some great examples of how those neighborhoods can exist, especially in South Roanoke and in Grandin Court. But those exist while single family zoning exists. And the solution to the problem is, I want to see redevelopment and policy start with high density corridors where we could increase and improve public transportation because the affordability issue and transportation and parking, those are all, that is the issues that are brought up when it comes to housing. And if we focus on, the transportation arteries around the city, and that's where we need to develop first. And then we need to get public transit right. We need to get our bus system right. We need to make it easy to use. We need to make it safe to use for everybody that wants to use it. We need to encourage other people to use it that don't use it now. And I think that will alleviate a lot of the overcrowding concerns in neighborhoods that have an issue with it. That's a place to start. We also have a lot of derelict housing and abandoned units or houses across the city where landlords, people die and their family never addresses it because it kind of sits there. And I would love to advocate for state action on that issue to give the city, one or two more tools to get those lots back to the city to where we could redevelop those kind of lots for, some small multifamily units or something, something like that to address the overall unit shortage. But when it comes to affordability, the ending single family zoning is not the solution to that, because even in the city's own words, when they go around and have held these meetings, they're talking about developing housing for over $80,000 to $90,000 in median income for people that make that amount or more. That is not going to be affordable housing. That's going to be upper middle housing is the term that they're going to use for it. And their solution for it is that people that are now under renting units are going to now occupy those more expensive units because they want something nicer than what they're living in. But there's the glaring issue just with that, without even getting too deep on that one, is, people can move in the city, right? Like, because now you have this, you build $400,000 townhouses, and somebody from Botetourt wants to live in the city, and you got 10 people buy up those 10 people that could afford that are still in that housing because people moved in, because people are looking for a good place to live right now. And that's, one of the first issues about that. So we need more development, and we need to address the blighted lots across the city is the first thing that, the first actions that need to be taken.
Mm-hmm. One of your drivers to run for council is to reduce the real estate tax. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yeah.
You touched on this, but what would you want to see it cut to?
I want to see the moratorium placed on the rate. Not the rate, but the real dollar amount, the valuations that's going into the coffers now, because we need time to look at a way to fix the issue going forward. The state statute says that real estate has to be valuated at a fair market price. That's a lot of flexibility of what fair is and isn't. And I think that the city could create a system where it caps how much it is lowered or raised in any given year, I mean, that could be whatever it is. That could be a 10% raise, 10% reduction, to where it protects taxpayers from, some unexpected hike any given year, but it also protects the city on the backside from an economic crash that will just plummet real estate valuations and give the city more time to recover in that scenario and give taxpayers more of a chance to catch up to rising valuation prices. And so to me, it's more about respecting the money that the people are paying into it and getting it under control now. If I was sitting on council when they had a $16 million surplus, I would have probably, asked for $4 or $5 million to go back to taxpayers. That's not going to be a lot of money to each individual, but it's something, and it shows that you care about how affordability has gone in your community and that you respect every cent that they are paying into the city.
You've talked about, expanding transit, lifting people out of poverty. Obviously, this is going to cost more money if you keep taxes as they are. Don't grow the budget. How do you?
It doesn't just have to come from the city spending. You see businesses from international companies, advanced manufacturing jobs coming to the valley. They're just not coming inside of the city because of the attitude that the council has given the past 10 years that, we've lost Advance Auto's, international headquarters and Norfolk Southern's international headquarters. They paid a lot of taxes in the city. It doesn't mean that you have to lay out the red carpet for anyone who comes along, but you have to start talking about those issues and make sure that those needs are being addressed when it comes to long-term economic development. And so it's public-private partnerships. It's, doing things to work to expand the medical institute and the school, which could be a humongous economic driver, just because with the impact that it has itself on bringing people in, more researchers, and then you're going to have more services to address the needs of those schools. But what the possibilities that come off of that, of having an environment to where people could use that IP that comes from any of that research in the school and build their, biotech startups or their pharmaceutical startups here in the city, and making sure that they can build it here and expand the tax base to where we could keep funding our schools and making them great. We could keep expanding public transit and giving opportunity to high-paying jobs, because it's not just about taking taxpayer dollars and funding every initiative. It's about taking the wide-angle view about how we address the long-term issue of the city.
Mm-hmm. Except if they're nonprofits, then they wouldn't be paying any taxes.
Nonprofits have a great place in the community, but there are spinoffs and for-profit services. Like Carillion, for example, a lot of it operates nonprofit status, but they do have for-profit arms that operate inside of the city. So stuff like that can happen. You could have those large nonprofits come in, but as long as they have something in the city that's operating, hey, well, that's some coming into the city government. But the biggest thing with that is if you have a nonprofit like Carillion coming in, and if I don't know off the top of my head what their average wage is, but if the average wage is, $57,000 or right above the median income for the country, and you have people working in the city making above median income, that's helping people get a leg up in life, because you don't have to spend as a government on more as heavily to take care of the needs of them whenever they're kind of producing for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's what I look forward to doing, is helping that kind of environment grow.
You're going out to dinner in Roanoke. Name just one place. Where do you go?
So I like the buffalo chicken dip at 202. Yeah. Well, I guess so. I'm a celiac. I'm a celiac, mm-hmm. So I can't eat pizza, mm-hmm. Burgers. I like Lou's. I go and I get some naked wings at Lou's. I like the buffalo chicken dip at 202. And then other than that, we usually cook. Me and my wife split duty on that.
Yeah. And what books are on your nightstand? What are you reading currently?
I cannot remember the author, but it is my second Grant biography this year.
Ulysses S?
Yeah, Ulysses S. Grant. So it's the second Grant biography. And then there was also one I bought at the same time. I can't sit down and finish one book. I have to have, multiple tabs open at all times. The other one, I don't read the author's names, but it's called The Middle Kingdom, and it's about like Central European, late Middle Ages to medieval history, and just a little bit about the functionality of, because you don't see a lot of post-Roman history from Central Europe, like up and down the Rhine, or west of that in Germany. So it's just gets into that, a lot of Holy Roman Empire stuff, just trying to learn about it.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's all the questions I have for you.